Year's Eve in the Appalachian Mountains. The plan was simple. Drive to a friend's place in the next city, cheap beer, fireworks, stupid jokes over the countdown, but my GPS had other ideas. After sunset, the snow started coming down in a solid wall. The highway slowly turned into a narrow white line, and my signal kept dropping in and out. Somewhere between the exits, I missed my turn and ended up on a thin mountain road instead of a busy interstate. No lane markings, no street lights, just my headlights and dark trees on both sides. A couple of miles later, my phone completely lost service. A couple after that, the car died. I tried to start it again. Starter whined, headlights flickered once, and then nothing. No engine, no radio, no hum, just silence. The kind of silence that feels thick, like your voice wouldn't make it past the hood if you tried to shout. I stepped out of the car. Cold slapped me in the face. The air was so dry and sharp it felt like breathing glass. All around me was dim sky and black tree lines. No houses, no lights, no other cars, just the suggestion of mountains pressing in on all sides. On the right side of the road, the ground dropped off into a steep slope. On the left, there was just a wall of trees. I swept my phone's flashlight over the trees and spotted a narrow, almost hidden trail leading into the forest. Next to it, half buried in snow, was a wooden sign. I wiped it off and squinted at the faded letters. Overlook cabin, 1.2 miles. Spending the night in a dead car on a mountain roadside with no signal and a snowstorm rolling in wasn't high on my list of life goals. So I grabbed my backpack and flashlight, left the hazard lights on for whatever they were worth, and headed up the trail. The deeper I went, the quieter it got. Even the crunch of snow under my boots started to sound muted, like the forest was swallowing the noise. Somewhere far off, something screamed, but it was that wrong kind of scream, too high and too ragged to be clearly human or animal. I remembered reading that up here, you don't always trust what you hear. A mountain lion can sound like a woman screaming, and sometimes people talk about seeing not deer, things that look almost right until you really look at them. I picked up the base. I found the cabin after maybe 20 minutes. Small, dark log structure, snow on the roof, a little porch, a woodpile under a lean-to. No lights, no movement, no fresh footprints on the steps. I knocked and waited. Nothing. Finally, more to convince myself than anyone else, I said out loud, "If anyone's here and you don't mind, I just need to crash for the night. I'll be gone in the morning." The door gave way with a tired creak. Inside, it smelled like old wood, dust, and cold ash. There was a stone fireplace with some logs stacked beside it, and a box of matches sitting on the mantel like someone had left them there on purpose. Looked like a proper old trail cabin or ranger shelter. I got a fire going, spread my jacket over a sagging couch, and only then pulled out my phone. No bars, no Wi-Fi, nothing. The lock screen said 11:17. I was going to ring in the new year alone in a forgotten cabin, somewhere high up in the Appalachians. I remembered reading about Appalachian New Year traditions. People lighting fireworks, shooting into the air, banging pots and pans to scare off bad spirits and make sure only good luck comes through the door for the next year. I smirked. I didn't have a gun or fireworks or even a pot to bang on, just a crackling fire and the occasional snap of the wood as it burned. Outside, something rustled. At first, I figured it was just snow sliding off the roof. Then it came again, slow, steady, like footsteps circling the cabin, snow compressing under each step, then pausing right under the window. I froze. The fire dimmed a little, and the corners of the room seemed to stretch deeper. I walked to the window. The glass was old and cloudy, but there was just enough moonlight to make out the tree line and the slope below. Nobody there. I was about to turn away when something moved at the edge of my vision. Between two trees, a little farther downslope, something was standing. Too tall to be a person at that distance, too thin to be a normal tree trunk. I raised my flashlight, but the beam fell short, only catching snow and low branches. When I lowered the light, the figure was gone. Sleep deprivation, I told myself. You're tired, you're cold, you're making shapes out of shadows. 10 minutes to midnight. I sat by the fire, listening to it pop and hiss, trying not to focus on every tiny noise outside. A branch cracking, snow shifting, the faint crunch of something moving across the hillside and then stopping. Somewhere far off on another peak, a single distant bang echoed through the dark. Maybe someone firing a gun in the air or setting off a big firework in an old mountain tradition. Closer to midnight, everything went too quiet. The fire suddenly flared straight up, like a gust of wind had blown through the room, even though the windows and door were shut tight. The flames leaned toward the front door, stretching in that direction, like they were reaching for something. I heard a board creak on the porch. I went completely still. One step, pause, another step. Whoever or whatever it was, they weren't trying to sneak. They were just taking their time, like they knew I was listening. The knock on the door was so soft it barely counted as a knock. Not the kind that makes you jump, the kind you could pretend you didn't hear if you were really determined. I didn't respond. The knock came again, slightly longer but still gentle. Then the door gave the tiniest groan, like the latch was being tested, just enough to see if it would open. That's when another bit of Appalachian superstition slid into my mind. On New Year's, the first person to cross your threshold sets the tone for the rest of your year. Some folks say if the wrong one steps in first, they bring something with them that you'll never fully shake off. I got up and walked toward the door. I didn't open it, I just put my palm flat against the wood. On the other side, it felt colder, sharper, like instead of air, there was a pocket of emptiness standing right there. The knocking stopped. Silence. A silence so deep that after a moment I could hear breathing. Not mine, slightly uneven, like someone standing inches away, listening through the boards. My phone screen lit up in my pocket. 12 o'clock. Right as the clock flipped, something outside cracked loud enough to make me flinch, but not at the cabin, out in the trees. It sounded like a cluster of gunshots or a whole pack of giant firecrackers going off at once. The echo rolled up and down the slopes, and in that echo I could swear I heard something shriek, too high, too jagged to be human, too long to be an animal cry. The fire in the hearth surged, then settled down. There was no more breathing behind the door. I stood there with my hand on the wood for a minute, then another. Finally, I stepped back, went to the couch and sat down. No more knocks, no more footsteps, just wind outside and the sound of the fire fading into embers. Sometime after that, I drifted off. The only thing that kept tugging me back toward waking was this faint impression, like far down the slope where the road was, something kept pacing in the snow, back and forth, looking for something it had almost found. When I stepped outside in the morning, the snow had stopped. The world was bright, too bright after that night. Around the cabin, there were tracks in the snow. They didn't come right up to the door. They circled the cabin, loop after loop. They paused in front of each window. And in certain places, the shape of them changed. Like whatever made them couldn't quite decide how many legs it wanted to walk on. Sometimes they were long strides like a person. Sometimes they looked more like a deer's tracks, only off, wrong angles, wrong spacing. Down at the road, a local guy in an old pickup truck was already digging my car out from a snowbank. When he saw me coming down from the trail, he just shook his head and said, "Not the best night to be sleeping up there, friend. Folks around here make a lot of noise on New Year's. Shooting, banging pots, all that. Ain't just for celebration. You want the right things coming in and the wrong things staying out." I didn't argue. I just glanced back up the slope at the dark line of trees where the cabin roof barely peeked over the ridge. And I promised myself that next New Year's Eve, when the clock hits midnight,